Welcome to another episode of How to Run a Successful Business and Still Have a Life. My name is Stacey Morgan, and today's episode is brought to you by my one-on-one coaching program, Simply You and I. If you would like to join me for some one-on-one business coaching, maybe it's something you've thought about for a little while, but you haven't actioned and you'd like to action it now, you can do so. We can either have just one catch-up one-on-one session and go from there, or you can book and save some money by booking 4 at the one time. You can find out more by going to simplystacey.com. Today's episode is going to be all about outsourcing and thinking about the things that you need to be doing in order to be able to move your week forward, move your business forward, and be heading towards the lifestyle that you really desire. And we've talked about this before on the podcast. Outsourcing is not something brand new. It's, something that is really important to me, especially when I talk to so many small business owners, because when you're first starting out and you get to that point, you get to that kind of breaking point where you need to outsource things to other people, it can be really scary. And for so many people, that's the point where they engage a business coach because they think, okay, this is where I'm at. It's kind of, there's a fork in the road. Do I head in this direction or this direction? I need somebody to thrash it out with. And that's, such a fun part of my job, because somebody coming in with a fresh perspective can see perhaps the things that are right in front of you that you can't actually see. And I know for me, when I started my business, it was just an idea I had, really. It wasn't, I had no intention of kind of taking over the world and making something that was bigger than Ben-Hur. But what ended up happening was I put an ad in the paper back in the days of the paper. There was no social media when I started my business, and we had 70 kids turn up on the first day. And that was, just terrifying, because I had said to my husband, it'll just be 2 afternoons a week. It'll just be a handful of babies, maybe like 15, 20 kids maximum, and having 70 sign up. And there was a little bit of buzz after I put the ad in the paper. There was a little bit of buzz. My phone started ringing. People started talking. I made my own website, and that was getting some clicks. And I was like, oh, okay, this could actually be a thing. And of course, when all those kids turned up, immediately, the immediate dread in my stomach was, I can't do this alone. I cannot do all of this on my own. How am I going to do this? And so for me, the question of outsourcing was answered for me. It was just, it physically could not happen that I could do this all on my own. And so I immediately reached out to, my dance teacher network and said, who needs a job? Who wants a new job? Who wants to be part of something fresh and exciting? And luckily I had incredible teachers that came on, and one who is still with me today. Not in an official capacity. She's officially left, but I see her every day because she seems to be covering for somebody in the height of COVID and everything else that's going on in the world at the moment, which is wonderful because she's such an important part of what we built together. And it's so lovely to still have her in the studio. So that outsourcing question for me was kind of answered before I even had a chance to really, really think about it. And I wonder if it's the same for you, or I wonder if it's something that you're kind of on the precipice of. There's things in your business that are taking too long for you to do them yourself. Perhaps you're not doing them terribly well yourself because it's not in your zone of genius. I know that I used to take a lot of pride in doing all of the wages myself. And when I say myself, I mean without any electronic assistance. So like with one of those old school books with a pencil and the graphs, and you turn a new page each fortnight when you do the wages. That's how I did my wages, and therefore then, also my tax. And I would turn up on my accountant's doorstep at the end of the financial year with a shoebox full of receipts and these, this old book that I carried around with me and just kind of handed over. And then she would take hours and hours and hours to undo all the mistakes that I had made and go and rectify all of them. So that was a lesson for me. Like that was an immediate, okay, this is something I can be outsourcing. I need to be outsourcing. I need somebody on my admin team who can really take over that role and do a better job than I can. And I'm very lucky to have somebody who's been doing that ever since and doing a stellar job. We just celebrated 10 years of her with the business. And my accountant, said, hallelujah, thank goodness, because I was now paying her what I thought was going to be a really big, costly investment. I can't possibly pay somebody to be taking care of all the accounting in my business. I need to do it myself. But what ended up happening was when I was doing it myself, I was end up having to pay for 15 hours of her time to undo all of my mistakes and fix everything up. And what ended up happening later on once, I got some administrative help, was that I'd go to the accountant and it would take her 2 hours to do what I was doing. So, and to get me sorted out, which was so much cheaper in the long run. But my fear was around, how much is this going to cost? And so I guess if you're thinking about outsourcing and you're thinking about the expense that comes along with that, I want you to instead think about the investment, because not only did it save me money when I went to the accountants and didn't have to pay for 15 hours worth of her work, I only had to pay for the 2 hours. Not only did that save me money, but I also got all of that time back, that fortnightly time where I would be, pouring through numbers and really getting frustrated and working myself into a frenzy. And the end of the financial year, when I'd have to sit down, I'd put it off and put it off and put it off to the very last minute. And then I'd have to sit down, and it would take me days and days and days to do what, other people were putting together in 45 minutes. And so that was a really big lesson for me. And so what I won back was that time, those days and days of time sitting down, working out how my taxes were going to work and whether, checking and double checking and triple checking my work. I won all of that time back by investing in a professional doing the work for me. So I want you to have a think about who you can invest in, what experts you can invest in to bring into your team, and not necessarily, bringing them in full time, but bringing them in whatever capacity, maybe 1-2 hours a year, maybe it's 1-2 hours a week, whatever works for you and whatever you need. But what experts are around you, or can you surround yourself with, that can come into your business and take that load off, free up some time for you? Yes, it will cost you money, but you'll earn it back. Just think about the ways in which you can innovate in your business, what product changes you can make, what customer relationship building you can do in that time that frees up by you investing in somebody else to jump in and do that job for you. And, for me, there was so much fear around that, getting somebody to do it for me. And the fear was mostly based in my own security. If an accountant or an administrative person comes in, they're going to see, that I'm dodgy and that I don't know what I'm doing and I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. They're going to see the mistakes that I've made. They're going to see that I'm just, crossing my fingers and hoping that this business works, or hoping that this works for the best. And yeah, that stuff is scary. And it was scary to hand all of that over and to be vulnerable and to say, hey, look, I'm just trying my very best to get through day to day. And it's important to remember that stuff, right? My business is now in its 12th season. And I forget that in those early days, I was so insecure about myself as a business owner. And I was so insecure about so many aspects of what we were doing. And I forget that now that it kind of comes second nature, and that I have people doing it for me, and that, the business is really successful, and I'm, jumping from one thing to the next and advising other people on how to run their businesses. So it's important to know that if you are feeling that fear, if you are feeling I couldn't possibly outsource some things in my business because then people will know the truth, if that's what you're feeling, know that we've been there before. People have been there before. People are there right now. You are not alone in this feeling. And when you're coming from a place of fear, you're never making really good decisions. So whatever that is that's keeping you playing small, whatever that is that's keeping you kind of, holding yourself back, maybe spend some time working through that yourself and working through, what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst thing that is going to happen? And that's kind of how I approached it. Okay, yes. So the accountant sees all the, the terrible job I've done in the last little while. And she figures out that I'm going to owe thousands of dollars to the tax department because I've done it all wrong and I've underestimated things. And so what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm going to have a big tax bill. The tax department's going to let me pay it off over how many years? Let's just say 10. Okay. I'll be able to pay it off over 10 years because I do have a successful business. It's running quite well. Yes, I'll have to have that awkward conversation with my husband, and yes, be vulnerable, and yes, say I got it wrong, and yes, say things aren't right. But I had to work through all of that. And of course, the worst case scenario rarely comes out, and the worst case scenario didn't come out for me. Though I did have to have that conversation with my husband, and, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm handing, this element of my business over to somebody else. And that's a bit scary. And, I'm lucky that he was supportive and loving and said, you can do this. And years later, I don't even think twice about it. But if that fear is holding you back, I want you to work through those things and do the what's the worst case scenario quiz for yourself. Work through that, figure out what that worst case scenario is, figure out if you can survive it. Figure out what the game plan will be if that actually happens, because it rarely does. But it's good. It's good to have that solution for your mind when your mind starts saying, this could happen. This, it all could go south. And it's really good to have that in the back of your head. I know that for some people, it's not necessarily about the investment of money, but for some people, it's the investment of, faith in yourself that stops you from outsourcing. Like, who am I to be a leader? Who am I to, have people that work for me and do things for me? And that's something you have to work through as well, because yes, it is going to be one of those things that you need to figure out for yourself and you need to work through. But no one can do that but you. So if that's the conversation that you're having in your head, then that is also something that you're going to need to deal with. And, whether you like it or not, if you run your own business, you are a leader. You are a leader to your community. You are a leader to the people that you serve. It's really hard to do it without being so. So you've already kind of signed up for it. This is kind of just the next level. And so if you need to work through your own kind of insecurities about what outsourcing means for you and what that means for your persona and how you're going to have to step up in a new way in your business, then I encourage you to do that work as well. Because yes, it is, relying on other people, it is an investment. It is something that you have to think long and hard about. It is something that you can do in your business. But when you do, the rewards are so massive. You get rewarded, with extra time to work on things. You get rewarded with business growth, which is what, we all want at the end of the day. And then you also get, with that business growth, then comes the ability to pick and choose what you do and to pick and choose your lifestyle. And isn't that the main goal? We talk about this so much on the podcast, that the main goal is building a lifestyle that you desire, a lifestyle that you want. So many of us go into small business because we want this lifestyle where we get to pick and choose how we spend our time. And yet some of us, find ourselves running our own business and running ourselves ragged because we feel like that's what we have to do. Being able to outsource parts of your roles and responsibilities in your business means that you will have more time for the things that are most important to you. And that's what I want for you. So if that fear is holding you back, I want you to think of the end, think of the end game, think of the prize at the end. And that is, having more control and more choice around exactly how you're going to spend your time and your money and your energy. And remember that when it comes to making those big decisions. And if you're stuck in the middle and you just don't know what to do and you don't know where to start, do I hire a marketer? Do I hire an accountant? Do I hire an administrator? Do I hire a cleaner? Where do I start? Then this is the perfect time to sit down with me for an hour and say, okay, how do we get stuck in and where do we start and where's the best use of our time and our resources? And I'd be more than happy to help you with that. Today's episode has been brought to you by my Simply You and I coaching program. You can sign up for a personalized business coaching session with me, and you can do so right now at simplystacymorgan.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you haven't left us a rating or review, please do on Apple Podcasts. I would love that. Please, if you can take a photo right now, if you're listening on your phone, pick up your phone, grab it out of your pocket, grab it out of the console or the car, not if you're driving, grab it from your hand, just take a screenshot and share it on your Insta story and tag me. I would really love it if you would do that. That helps us share the podcast with so many more people, especially all the people on Instagram who don't know that I have a podcast that comes out every Wednesday. That would be really, really helpful. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you having me along for your walk or along for your ride in your earbuds. And I look forward to talking to you next week.